Hi guys, I'm Dancop, formerly known as Daniel Chia, and I'm an overclocker since 5 years right now. I'm 36 years old, married, and I have 4 children. So I'm quite busy with everything. I have a normal job, besides everything I do with overclocking. I started overclocking, let's say, 10 years ago or 12 years with water, or I started on air, then switched over to water, and after the water overclocking I saw that there is still a limit. Let's push the limit further with more cold, so I started chilling the water, and I had water like minus 10 degrees, and that wasn't enough anyway, so I started with dry ice, and after dry ice I started with liquid nitrogen. So one of my biggest successes is the G-Ski World Cup last year. So I won it finally. It was my, I think it was my 4th attempt there. And this year I want to try to defend the title. So this is the biggest prize money you can win in overclocking. It's like $10,000 US. I was working for this quite hard the last 5 years. So right now I got it, and now I want to try to defend it. And then there were several other first places at live competitions. I really like to bench live because live is totally different or compared to benching at home, because you have time and it's quiet. There are no crowds. There's just nothing, and you have a lot of time and retry. And in a live competition, especially the G-Skill one, you have 3 hours for 4 stages. Either you win or you lose, that's it. So I really like it, yeah. So which ASUS product I like the most? Basically all of them. There are some, let's say, preferred products, which are the mainboards for sure. I think since Z170, ASUS implemented some very special extreme overclocking stuff. So that means they asked us during the development phase, what would you like to have in a mainboard? And they, let's say, implemented almost everything. So me, for instance, I had 5 wishes, and 4 of them went into the first Z170. I think it was the Impact back in the days. So yeah, that was for me the biggest milestone when it started with overclocking memory profiles from, especially, I mean, there are profiles from me in an ASUS BIOS since Z170 up to Z390, so that's crazy for a guy like me. I really like this idea and the decision, especially from the headquarters in Taiwan, that they decided to take our names into the BIOS. This is one thing, and then you have switches like the RSVD switch, which gives you very good voltages to boot up at very low temperatures, and so on and so on. So once you start overclocking on an extreme way with liquid nitrogen, you face many problems, and with these problems, you have to find some workarounds. And when you use an ASUS board, you don't need to find these workarounds because the board already knows the workaround. That's it. My recommendation before you start with extreme overclocking is get familiar with everything in terms of overclocking. That means memory, CPU, even graphics card. Start with it on air or water, AIO cooled or whatever, and get familiar with everything, with the voltages, even with PWM frequencies on graphics cards and so on, because this is really difficult. And once you start to go very cold, which means liquid nitrogen, it starts to be even more problematic for everything. So be prepared once you start with the liquid nitrogen. And one more recommendation is insulate your hardware well. So this is basically the most important thing, because once you have it insulated very well, you can just run everything for a very long time, unless you live in Taiwan, because there you have a humidity at around 90%, so everything starts to get wet within 10 minutes. Me, for instance, I'm living in Germany, I can bench like 8 hours and there's nothing. So that's quite a difference, but anyway, prepare your hardware very well, prepare your brain, prepare your, let's say, or train overclocking on water before you start extreme overclocking. That's it.